I'd been sitting in that conference room for 15 minutes, watching my son-in-law's business partners exchange glances every time they looked at my flannel shirt. The shirt cost me $8 at a thrift store in Bozeman, Montana. I bought it 30 years ago. Still fits. My son-in-law, Bradley, sat at the head of the table in his $3,000 Italian suit, pretending not to know me. His partners, two men in their 40s with matching Rolexes, kept whispering to each other. I caught fragments. Who invited the janitor? One of them actually said that. I just sipped my coffee and waited. See, they'd called this meeting to discuss buying out my daughter's shares in their tech company. The company she'd helped build from nothing. The company they were now trying to steal from her while she fought cancer in a hospital bed 60 miles away. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me start from the beginning. My name is Harold Mitchell. I'm 67 years old. I spent 41 years working as a machinist in a factory outside of Billings. Retired 8 years ago with a pension, a small house, and absolutely no desire to get involved in corporate nonsense. My daughter, Sarah, is the smart one in the family. Always was. Graduated top of her class at Montana State, got her MBA from Stanford, and came back home to start a company. She had this idea about software that could help small farmers manage their operations more efficiently. Sounds simple, but she turned it into something worth millions. She met Bradley at a tech conference in Seattle. He was charming, educated, came from money. His family owned half the commercial real estate in Portland. When he proposed after 6 months of dating, I had my doubts, but Sarah was happy. That's all that mattered to me. They got married in 2019. Beautiful ceremony at his family's estate. I wore a rented tuxedo and felt like a fish out of water the whole time. His mother looked at me like I was something stuck to the bottom of her shoe. His father didn't bother looking at me at all, but I smiled and shook hands and told myself it didn't matter. Sarah was happy. The first 2 years seemed fine. Bradley joined Sarah's company as the chief operating officer. She was the CEO, the visionary. He handled the day-to-day business stuff. They made a good team, or so I thought. Then Sarah got sick. It started with headaches in early 2023. She brushed them off. Stress, she said. Running a company wasn't easy, but the headaches got worse. Then came the fatigue, the vision problems. By June, we had a diagnosis. Brain tumor. Malignon. The doctors said surgery was possible, but risky. Sarah decided to fight. She's always been a fighter. But the treatment meant stepping back from the company. She had to focus on getting better. That's when things started to change. Bradley became distant. He stopped visiting her in the hospital. When he did show up, he spent most of his time on his phone, talking in hushed tones about business matters. Sarah noticed but didn't want to make waves. She was too tired to fight on multiple fronts. I noticed too. Started paying closer attention. In August 2023, I drove down to their house in Bozeman to pick up some things Sarah needed. Bradley wasn't home, but I had a key. While I was gathering her books and some comfortable clothes, I heard the home office printer running. Curious, I walked in. The printer was spitting out documents. Legal documents. I'm not a lawyer, but I know what a stock transfer agreement looks like. I'd seen enough paperwork when Sarah first started the company. These documents were transferring Sarah's majority shares in the company to Bradley and his two partners. The signatures at the bottom were supposed to be Sarah's, but I knew my daughter's handwriting. Those signatures were forged. My hands were shaking as I gathered those papers. I took photos with my phone, then put them back exactly where they were. That night, I didn't sleep. I sat in my kitchen, staring at those photos, trying to figure out what to do. My first instinct was to call the police. But I'm an old machinist from Montana. I know how these things work. Rich people have lawyers. Rich people have connections. If I came at Bradley with just some photos of documents, he'd claim I misunderstood. His lawyers would bury me in paperwork. And Sarah, fighting for her life, would be caught in the middle. I needed more. I needed to understand exactly what they were planning. So I did something I never thought I'd do. I became a spy in my own family. Over the next 3 months, I played dumb. I'm good at that. People look at a 67-year-old man in a flannel shirt and see someone who doesn't understand technology, doesn't understand business. They talk freely around me. They leave documents lying around. I started visiting Bradley's office more often, bringing him lunch, pretending to be the concerned father-in-law just trying to help. His assistant thought I was sweet. Bradley tolerated me because it looked good to his partners. The doting father-in-law supporting the family during difficult times. Meanwhile, I was memorizing everything I saw, taking photos when no one was looking, writing down conversations I overheard. What I discovered made me sick. Bradley and his partners had been planning this for over a year. They'd brought in outside investors without Sarah's knowledge, diluting her shares. They'd created fake expense reports to drain company funds into a separate account. And now, with Sarah too weak to fight, they were making their final move, a hostile takeover of her own company. The forged documents were just the beginning. They'd hired a lawyer to file papers claiming Sarah was mentally incapacitated due to her illness and couldn't make business decisions. They had a doctor, one of Bradley's college friends, ready to testify that she wasn't competent. They were going to take everything from her, the company she'd built, her life's work, and they were going to do it while she lay in a hospital bed, fighting to survive. But here's what they didn't know about me. Before I was a machinist, I spent 4 years in the Army. Military police. I learned how to investigate, how to document evidence, how to build a case. After the Army, I didn't just work in the factory. For 20 years, I served as the union representative for our local. I've sat across the table from corporate lawyers more times than I can count. I've read contracts, spotted loopholes, and negotiated deals that protected hundreds of workers. And 5 years before I retired, the factory brought in new management that tried to cook the books. I'm the one who noticed the discrepancies in the pension fund. I'm the one who gathered the evidence. And I'm the one who testified before a federal grand jury that sent 3 executives to prison. But Bradley didn't know any of that. He just saw an old man in a flannel shirt. By November 2023, I had everything I needed. Bank records showing the money transfers, emails proving the conspiracy, audio recordings of Bradley and his partners discussing how to handle Sarah, the forged documents, the fake medical evaluation, all of it. I took my evidence to an old friend from my union days, Marcus Webb, retired FBI agent, now working as a private investigator in Helena. He looked at what I had and let out a low whistle. "Harold," he said, "this isn't just corporate fraud. This is federal wire fraud, mail fraud, conspiracy. These boys are looking at serious time." Marcus helped me connect with the right people. The U.S. Attorney's Office in Montana, the SEC, the FBI's white-collar crime division. They were very interested in what I had to show them. But here's the thing about federal investigations. They take time, and Bradley was moving fast. In December, he filed for divorce from Sarah, while she was still in the hospital, while she was still fighting cancer. He claimed the marriage was irretrievably broken and demanded immediate division of assets, including her shares in the company. The court date was set for January 15th, 2024. I'll never forget the look on Sarah's face when I told her. She was having a good day, sitting up in bed, color in her cheeks for the first time in months. The doctors were cautiously optimistic. The treatment was working. Then I had to tell her that her husband was trying to steal her company and divorce her at the same time. She cried. Not the angry tears I expected. Just quiet, exhausted tears. "I knew," she whispered. "Part of me knew. I just didn't want to believe it." I held her hand and told her not to worry. I had a plan. Sarah didn't want to hire a lawyer. She was tired, beaten down. She said Bradley could have the company if he wanted it so badly. She just wanted to get better and move on with her life. I understood, but I couldn't let it happen. "Let me handle this," I said. "Trust your old man one more time." She looked at me with those tired eyes and finally nodded. The morning of January 15th, I woke up at 5 a.m. in my motel room outside Bozeman. I showered, shaved, and put on my clothes for the day. My best flannel shirt, the one I wore to Sarah's high school graduation. Clean jeans, work boots I'd polished the night before. I looked at myself in the mirror. Just an old man, nobody special. Exactly what I wanted them to see. The courthouse was a modern building downtown. I got there early and sat on a bench outside the courtroom, watching Bradley and his lawyers arrive. 3 attorneys in expensive suits, carrying leather briefcases. Bradley in the middle, looking confident. He glanced at me and smirked. "Harold," he said, with that condescending tone he'd perfected over the years. "This is just a formality. Wouldn't miss it," I said. His lead attorney, a silver-haired man named Patterson, looked me up and down. "You're representing Sarah's interests today?" "That's right." He exchanged a look with Bradley. The kind of look that said, "This is going to be easier than we thought." "Well," Patterson said, "I hope you've prepared something. We have extensive documentation of Sarah's incapacity. This should be wrapped up quickly." I just smiled and said nothing. The courtroom was smaller than I expected. Wood paneling, fluorescent lights, an American flag behind the judge's bench. We took our seats. Bradley and his team on one side. Me, alone, on the other. The judge entered. Honorable Patricia Reeves. Mid-60s, gray hair pulled back in a bun, reading glasses perched on her nose. She had the look of someone who didn't suffer fools. "Good morning," she said, settling into her chair. "Case number 2024CV0112, Mitchell versus Mitchell. I understand we're here to address division of marital assets, specifically shares in." She glanced at her papers. Summit Agricultural Technologies. "Mr. Patterson, you're representing the petitioner?" "Yes, Your Honor. And the respondent is represented by—" She looked at me. "I'm sorry. Sir, are you an attorney?" I stood up. "No, Your Honor. I'm Harold Mitchell. I'm here on behalf of my daughter, Sarah Mitchell. She's unable to attend due to medical treatment." Patterson jumped in immediately. "Your Honor, we object to Mr. Mitchell's presence. He's not a licensed attorney. He has no legal standing to represent Mrs. Mitchell in these proceedings." Judge Reeves looked at me over her glasses. "Mr. Mitchell, are you aware that you cannot practice law without a license?" "Yes, ma'am. I'm not here to practice law. I'm here to present evidence on my daughter's behalf. Montana law allows a family member to speak for an incapacitated party in certain circumstances. I have documentation of Sarah's written authorization." I handed the papers to the bailiff, who passed them to the judge. She studied them for a long moment. "These appear to be in order," she said. "I'll allow Mr. Mitchell to participate in a limited capacity. Mr. Patterson, you may proceed with your petition." Patterson smiled like a cat who'd cornered a mouse. "Thank you, Your Honor. We're here today because my client's wife, Sarah Mitchell, is unfortunately no longer capable of managing her business affairs. Her medical condition has rendered her mentally incapacitated. We have documentation from her treating physician." Objection. Everyone turned to look at me. "I'm sorry," Patterson said. "Did the gentleman in the flannel shirt just object?" "I did. The document Mr. Patterson is referring to was prepared by Dr. Kevin Shore, who is a college friend of the petitioner and has never actually examined my daughter." Patterson's face went red. "That's a serious accusation." "It's not an accusation, it's a fact. I have Dr. Shore's college yearbook photo showing him and Mr. Mitchell at a fraternity party. I also have my daughter's actual medical records from Montana General Hospital, signed by Dr. Rebecca Townsend, her primary oncologist, stating that Sarah is fully mentally competent." I pulled the documents from my folder and handed them to the bailiff. The judge studied them while Patterson huddled with Bradley. "These records are quite clear," Judge Reeves said. "Dr. Townsend states that while Mrs. Mitchell is undergoing treatment for a serious illness, there is no impairment to her cognitive function." "Mr. Patterson, did you verify the credentials of your medical expert?" Patterson was sweating now. "Your Honor, we were assured by our client that Dr. Shore was qualified." I'm going to strike the incapacity claim from consideration, the judge said. Let's move on. Bradley leaned over and whispered something to Patterson. The lawyer nodded and regrouped. Very well, Your Honor. Regardless of the incapacity question, we're still seeking division of the marital assets. My client and his wife jointly own shares in Summit Agricultural Technologies. We believe a fair division would be 50-50. Your Honor, I said, I'd like to present evidence regarding the nature of those shares. Go ahead, Mr. Mitchell. I stood and pulled out my folder, the one I'd been building for 5 months. The shares in question were originally 100% owned by my daughter. She founded the company in 2017, 3 years before she met Mr. Mitchell. When they married in 2019, the shares remained in her name as separate property. That's not accurate, Patterson interrupted. Our client contributed significantly to the company's growth. Under Montana law, marital effort that increases the value of separate property can convert that property to marital. I'm aware of that law, I said, but I'm also aware that Mr. Mitchell's contribution wasn't building the company, it was draining it. I handed the next set of documents to the bailiff. These are bank records, showing that over the past 18 months, Mr. Mitchell and his business partners transferred $3.2 million from Summit's operating accounts to a shell company registered in Delaware. The shell company is owned by Mr. Mitchell and his partners, Thomas Reed and Stephen Burke. The courtroom went very quiet. I also have email correspondence between Mr. Mitchell and his partners discussing their plan to, and I'm quoting here, squeeze out Sarah before she figures out what's happening. Bradley shot to his feet. This is ridiculous. Where did you get those documents? Sit down, Mr. Mitchell, Judge Reeves said sharply. Continue, Mr. Mitchell, Sr. I took a breath. Your Honor, I have one more piece of evidence to present. But I believe it would be better coming from someone with more authority than an old machinist in a flannel shirt. Right on cue, the courtroom doors opened. 2 U.S. Marshals walked in. Behind them was a woman in a dark suit who I recognized. Special Agent Diana Cross, FBI White-Collar Crime Division. We'd spoken on the phone a dozen times over the past 2 months. What is this? Patterson demanded. Agent Cross walked to the front of the courtroom. Your Honor, I apologize for the interruption. I'm Special Agent Diana Cross with the FBI. We have federal warrants for the arrest of Bradley Mitchell, Thomas Reed, and Stephen Burke on charges of wire fraud, securities fraud, and conspiracy to commit corporate espionage. Bradley's face went white. Completely white. Like all the blood had drained out of it. This is some kind of mistake, he stammered. Agent Cross turned to him. Bradley Mitchell, you're under arrest. You have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law. The marshals moved forward. Bradley tried to back away, but there was nowhere to go. They put him in handcuffs right there in front of the judge's bench. Harold, Bradley shouted at me as they led him away. You can't do this. You're nobody. I'm just a father, I said quietly. That's all I've ever been. The courtroom was chaos for the next few minutes. Patterson was on his phone, probably calling his malpractice insurance company. Agent Cross was coordinating with her team. Judge Reeves was reviewing the federal warrants. I just sat there in my flannel shirt and waited. Eventually, things calmed down. Judge Reeves looked at me with something that might have been respect. Mr. Mitchell, she said, I have to ask. How did a retired machinist from Billings manage to uncover a multi-million-dollar fraud scheme? I shrugged. I'm a father, Your Honor. When someone threatens my daughter, I pay attention. She almost smiled. I'm dismissing all of Mr. Patterson's motions and referring this matter to the federal court for disposition alongside the criminal case. Mrs. Mitchell's assets will remain protected pending the outcome of those proceedings. Thank you, Your Honor. I gathered my papers and walked out of the courthouse. The January air was cold and sharp and clean. I stood on the steps for a moment, just breathing. My phone rang. It was Sarah. Dad, what happened? The nurses are saying something about Bradley being arrested? "It's over, sweetheart. He can't hurt you anymore." She was crying again. But this time, they were different tears. "Dad, I don't understand. How did you do this?" I looked up at the gray Montana sky and thought about all the years. All the factory floors and union meetings and late nights reading contracts. All the skills I'd picked up along the way that nobody thought an old machinist would have. "I just paid attention," I said. "That's all." There was a pause. Then Sarah laughed. Actually laughed, for the first time in months. "You're something else, old man. I learned from the best. Your mother was the real detective in this family. I'm just a slow learner." That made her laugh again? Good. "When can you come visit?" she asked. "I'm on my way right now. Save me some of that terrible hospital jello." "Dad?" "Yeah? Thank you. I love you." "I love you too, sweetheart. I'll see you soon." I hung up and walked to my truck, the same truck I'd been driving for 20 years. The paint was faded, and there was rust around the wheel wells, but the engine ran smooth. I knew how to take care of things. As I drove toward the hospital, I thought about what Bradley had said. "You're nobody. You're just a what? Just an old man? Just a machinist? Just a father? Maybe that's all I am." But here's what I've learned in 67 years. The people who underestimate you are always the ones with something to hide. They look at your clothes, your job, your age, and they see what they want to see. They never look deeper. And that's their mistake. Bradley is facing 15 to 20 years in federal prison. His partners took plea deals and are cooperating with prosecutors. The shell company has been dissolved, and the stolen money is being recovered. Sarah's company is still hers. All of it. The board of directors voted unanimously to restore her as CEO once she's well enough to return. In the meantime, she appointed a trusted friend to manage operations. And her treatment is going well. The tumor is shrinking. The doctors are using words like optimistic and positive trajectory. She has a long road ahead, but she's walking it with her head high. As for me, I went back to my quiet life in Billings. My small house, my pension, my morning coffee on the porch, watching the sun come up over the mountains. But I did buy one new thing. A frame for the photo Sarah sent me last week. Her, standing outside her office building, smiling, strong, alive. I put it on my mantel, right next to the picture of my late wife, Margaret. I think she'd be proud of how things turned out. She always said I was too stubborn for my own good. But sometimes, I said to her picture, stubborn is exactly what's needed. The other day, a reporter from the local news called me. She wanted to do a story about the case. The machinist who took down a fraud ring, she wanted to call it. I politely declined. "Why?" she asked. "You're a hero." "No," I said. "I'm just a father who loves his daughter. There's nothing heroic about that. It's just what you do." She didn't understand. Most people don't. But that's okay. I know who I am. I know what I'm capable of. And I know that the people who matter most to me are safe. That's enough for an old man in a flannel shirt. That's more than enough. If you asked me whether I'd do it all again, the answer is yes, without hesitation, without regret. Because when someone you love is in trouble, you don't think about the risks. You don't calculate the odds, you just act. And sometimes, if you're lucky, justice finds its way. Even in a small courtroom in Montana. Even delivered by a nobody in a $8 shirt. My daughter called me yesterday. She's starting physical therapy next week, learning to walk longer distances again, building back her strength. "I've been thinking about what you did," she said. "How you spent months gathering evidence. How you never gave up. How you walked into that courtroom alone against all those lawyers." "I wasn't alone," I said. "I had your mother watching over me." She got quiet for a moment. "I miss her." "Me too. Every day. Dad, when I get out of here, when I'm better, I want to come home for a while. Back to Billings, just to be near you. Is that okay?" I had to clear my throat before I could answer. "Your room is always ready." I never changed it. I know. I love you, Dad. I love you too. Now go get some rest. Doctor's orders. She laughed and hung up. I sat on my porch and watched the sunset. The sky turned orange and pink and purple, the way it only does in Montana. The mountains stood silent in the distance, permanent and patient, like they'd seen everything and would see everything still to come. I thought about all the people who had underestimated me over the years. The corporate executives who thought union workers were stupid. The lawyers who thought an old man couldn't read a contract. Bradley and his partners who saw a flannel shirt and assumed there was nothing underneath it worth worrying about. They all made the same mistake. They looked at the surface and forgot to look beneath it. But I've never cared much about surfaces. I care about engines, about how things work, about the truth that hides inside the machine. And that's how I knew Bradley was lying from the very beginning. Not because of what he said, but because of what he didn't say. The small hesitations, the glances away, the answers that were too smooth. A good machinist knows when something's running wrong, even when it looks fine on the outside. You learn to listen for the slight vibration, the tiny catch, the sound that doesn't belong. Bradley was a machine running wrong. I just had to figure out why. Now he's sitting in a federal detention center, waiting for trial. His fancy lawyers are scrambling to build a defense. His partners are testifying against him to save their own skins. And Sarah is getting better, one day at a time. That's all any of us can do, really. Take it one day at a time, do the best we can. Love the people who matter, and never, ever give up on them. Not even when the odds seem impossible. Not even when everyone tells you that you can't. Not even when you're just an old man in a flannel shirt, sitting alone at a table full of suits. Because sometimes, the people who look like they have nothing are the ones with everything that matters. And the people who think they have everything are the ones with nothing at all. Bradley learned that lesson the hard way. I hope he remembers it. I know I will.